Yeah, I mean, just the state of Michigan football is scary good right now. Yeah, I mean, just the state of Michigan football is scary good right now. Yeah, I mean, just the state of Michigan football is scary good right now.
You don't mind hearing that. Jim Harbaugh yesterday, spring presser. Welcome in. It is afternoon live here on the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian. We're ready to tip this one up. Thanks for being with us. We're here every day at 1 o'clock, and we're on after Michigan basketball and football games. We'll have that special programming coming up tomorrow as we get ready for some hoops. Today, we've got some hoops and some football to talk about with Jim Harbaugh coming out and saying a number of things about his team in the spring. It happens every year. When March rolls around, you're getting ready for basketball, and then here comes the football coach with a spring update. It's almost like so much information at once, but we'll get through it. We'll talk about it and give you some opinions on what's going on here at the state of Michigan football and basketball. And I can tell you, it is, things are looking up. Things are looking pretty good on both fronts. Let's start out with the basketball team, who is in action tomorrow morning. Weird. 11:30 in Indy, and they'll take on Indiana. I think Michigan will be a 2.5-point favorite in that game. I haven't seen any betting lines yet, but some of the things that have been talked about since Sunday's win down in Columbus, where Hunter Dickinson was not available for Michigan because he was sick, stomach flu or whatever, something along those lines. And Moussa Diabate was in there, and some questioning if Michigan is better when Hunter Dickinson and Moussa Diabate are not on the floor at the same time. And what do you think of that? Now, if you're out there and you want to weigh in via the comments, you can go ahead and do that. What do I think about these two being out on the floor at the same time? Well, what we saw on Sunday, I think there's a couple things to think about there. One is that what you saw from the Ohio State defense, when you look at where they rank Ken Palm-wise, it's not very good. I mean, they're a terrible defensive team. The credit still goes to Michigan. And when you don't have Hunter Dickinson, Michigan's best player over the last couple weeks, if not month or so, has been Devontae Jones. And so Devontae knew going in that game he was going to have to put a lot onto his shoulders, and he stepped up. He played like a superstar, 21 points and 9 assists. But is there something there where you see Diabate running that high pick and roll more effectively than with Jones? I think there's a few things. One is that, both of them can catch some lobs, but the more athletic Diabate on a pick and roll, when he is rolling to the hoop, I think he catches the ball above the rim better, with a better catch radius and being able to throw it down. He's just more athletic. And then I think the same thing applies with being able to catch the ball. And if there's a spot where Hunter Dickinson, it's not a struggle. It's hard for a 7-1 guy when the ball is, thrown below his waist, to go down and scoop it up or have those hands. You need to have that pass into a range with Hunter Dickinson. So I do think Diabate's better on that pick and roll, although Dickinson is the better shooter on a pick and pop. But am I starting with Dickinson on the bench or Diabate and trying to rotate them in that way? If I'm the Michigan staff and we're sitting around, if for some reason they let me in there and they're asking me what I thought, I would say no. I think you still want to stay with the two guys here. They worked well in a tandem against Purdue, and it could take a little while, that chemistry between big men and the spacing. And you watch a lot of basketball this time of year, and you see bigs working that key and playing off of one another and getting a high-low type situation going. I think Michigan will stay with that. But can you take Hunter Dickinson? It's not like Dickinson has just been planted down in the paint. A lot of times last year he was. But this year, he's stretching out as a 5, a stretch Hunter. And so with that, you can take Hunter Dickinson and stretch him out and get that high screen and roll and see how that set is working for you against the Hoosiers tomorrow afternoon. If you go back, Michigan and Indiana played one time. They played in January in Bloomington, and Michigan shot the lights out in that game. Dickinson was huge in that game, in particular in the second half. But the Wolverines were deadly from downtown. You hadn't been able to really say that all year long. And, they just filled it up from outside. So if they shoot really well, I'm telling you that you should feel really good about Michigan winning the game. I think everybody would agree with that. But so the question about is Michigan better when Dickinson and Diabate are not at the floor at the same time? I don't think so. But you tinker with some things, and it's now's the time where if you do put one of them in there, and you're like, let's just say it's Diabate, and you try to run some of the same stuff you did against Ohio State without having to stretch Dickinson, you have him out stretching out on the sideline, on the bench, and it's effective. Well, then you can go from there. But heading in, I would have both of them in the starting lineup, certainly if Dickinson is back to 100%. What about this team making a run in Indianapolis? That's, I think, the question on everyone's mind. Back in 2017, Michigan went and won this thing 2 years in a row, 17 and 18. 17, they were an 8 seed. 2017 and 2018, they were a 4 seed. So what you're talking about there, I just want to make sure I confirm these 17 and 18s. You had 18. That's right, 18. Michigan was a 5 seed, and in 17, that was when they had issue with the plane at Willow Run. That's when they were an 8 seed, and that's the only time an 8 seed had won this tournament. So can Michigan make a run? Yeah, they can. It's unlikely. Michigan's the only one. Usually it's the top 2 seeds getting it done. Although the favorite in Vegas is Purdue, who's the 3 seed. And I think a lot of people like Iowa, who is sitting there as well. But could Michigan get the job done against Indiana, and then they take on Illinois? And, play your best basketball of the year. Can they get Diabate in Houston? Not lost on people about Sunday's game. Diabate was all right, but Caleb Houston was not scoring-wise. I mean, he wasn't there. And if Michigan's going to make some kind of run to the weekend, even before we get to next week, I would think that they're going to need Caleb Houston pitching in on offense and throwing some in from downtown. I know that sounds a little crazy, but you would think, can it happen? We've seen a couple games stretch just here recently where he was shooting well, so he's got it in him. So maybe. And then Terrence Williams, who's on this incredible run. What is it, 11 of 16, like 4 of 5 from downtown? It's tremendous shooting over now a 4-game span for Terrence Williams. And Williams doesn't look like, especially when it comes to a 3-point shooter, like he's especially like, oh, yeah, that thing looks like, he's a real sharpshooter from outside. But, he's hot right now. And he doesn't have to just shoot threes. Get him in there, score the ball. Try him. But what would happen if you got all 3 of those guys going at the same time? That's a good question. We have not seen that. That's where you start talking about, well, they could beat Illinois. But right now, as you take a look at it, you got the 2 games tonight here, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Penn State. Do we see upsets as we take a look at that? I pulled a bracket up and scored it here, and it is a little sloppy with my writing. My normal handwriting is sloppy, and then I had to do one. It was the first time I've ever was using this pen and writing on my computer. And if you're watching this, you can see I put the Michigan score, what I think it's going to be tomorrow morning, 73-70. I like Michigan to beat Indiana in a close one. But you can see my penmanship is not the best there. That is a 73-70. And then it's a pretty chalky bracket, but I think that's how it's going to play out. I think Iowa is going to advance over the Nebraska Northwestern winner. I know Nebraska did just beat Wisconsin, so taking and they are the underdog against Northwestern, but I like the Cats there, so I would go with the seed, and then down low, my face is in the way there. If you're watching the 11-14 matchup, Minnesota did beat Michigan this year. The Penn State, to me, sneaky. If there's going to be one upset, it's not going to be Penn State over Minnesota. The Nittany Lions actually favored. I will get to tomorrow, though, and you can see where I have Penn State beating Ohio State. Ohio State's, we saw that they had some injured players. They're banged up. Penn State with a chance there. There's an upset that I have for you. The rest of this gets a little bit chalky. Could I see if it gets to a Final Four? Would so I have Michigan losing to Illinois. Could I see something happening here with in a Saturday matchup where Iowa could beat Illinois or Wisconsin could beat Purdue? Sure, it can happen, but I'll take Purdue and Illinois, and I have Illinois as the winner. And in orange printing, that does say winner, but it was a little sloppy there at the end with my first run at writing in a bracket. When it gets to the NCAA tournament, I'll have to come up with a different type of bracket. That thing will look too chaotic if it ends up being like that. All right, so that's where I'm at with basketball. And a reminder here, tomorrow after the game starts at 11:30. That means that around 1:45, the game will be over tomorrow. When the game gets over, I'll fire this TMBR TV up and talk about what we saw between Michigan and Indiana. Look ahead for the Wolverines in Indy to their next game. If they get that win, we'll pick up the pieces and talk about the NCAA tournament if it ends up going the wrong way for the Wolverines. But it should be the favorite tomorrow. Should win that game. And then it's about, hey, can they get to the weekend? Could they get to the weekend? Could they pull an upset against Illinois? Yeah, they could. It's time. It's time to do that. It's that time of year. So everybody should be fired up about basketball tomorrow. Why wouldn't you be? Also, football. Let's get to it here. You had Jim Harbaugh, and when he talked about that defensive line, you see there's underlined and bold on the screen, but Jim Harbaugh, when he was talking about the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, just the state of Michigan football is scary good right now.
He said the state of Michigan football is scary good right now. You like to hear that from the coach. Better than we'll see what's happening. We're taking every play. We're just trying to get better every rep. I know that's how they talk to begin with, but a lot of times you'll hear that. But Harbaugh said so many different things yesterday. We'll talk about some of them here. This defensive line, last year, Harbaugh had mentioned Mazi Smith having an outstanding spring, and it gets back to, again, this coaching talk during the spring. There have been a lot of times where you listen and, whoever the coach was, oh, so-and-so had an outstanding spring, and then he was just great this spring, and then you see, you're like, I thought he had such a great spring. But Mazi Smith was pointed out a number of times last year as having an outstanding spring. And he did. He carried it into the season and had an outstanding season. So with Harbaugh talking about the defensive line and going to Mazi Smith right away and right off the jump, saying he's playing really well, looks tremendous. And then it's not a coincidence how coaches reveal the names of the players when they're talking about a position group. So, yeah, Mazi Smith's leading the defensive line. Chris Jenkins. Now, could Chris Jenkins play inside, or is he playing outside in that 3-4? He's played both of them there, but it's good to hear. I'd like to see where he's at weight wise. Chris Jenkins, his dad was a interior defensive lineman, so but Chris Jenkins' name was mentioned second there, and then Taylor Upshaw, who is my pick to be the captain for Michigan coming out of spring or heading into spring, and ultimately after summer and into fall ball. I think he will be voted captain by his Michigan teammates there. And then, behind him, talking about Braden McGregor and Mike Morris, and Harbaugh coming over the top, talking about Morris, saying he could be the next Aiden Hutchinson or Ajabo. There's some really exciting things going on in the defensive line. I would say that is exciting. I mean, if you're a Michigan football fan, you're all excited about the draft because everybody's excited about the draft. It's football. It's not going to be excited about the draft. And then you hear Harbaugh talking about Mike Morris maybe stepping in. Would you have rather have had that, be Braden McGregor? Hey, whoever wants to step up there and be the next Hutchinson, that's great. But, Harbaugh's saying that the team looks scary good. The state of Michigan football is scary good right now. Nothing but music to your ears if you're a Michigan football fan. The other part, he was asked about the freshman wideouts. They have a trio of wideouts, Amarian Walker, Darius Clemens, and Tyler Morris. And Harbaugh called them a freak show. That's good. All three receivers, physically, what we were just talking about in terms of what they can do, running, jumping, those traits are quite off the charts. Again, fantastic news. Now, Michigan's pretty stacked at wide receiver to begin with when you start going through them. And Ronnie Bell is expected to come back for this this team right here. Cornelius Johnson, Andrell Anthony, Roman Wilson, A.J. Henning. Like, just keep it going. And now you add these three. It does make you think, as much as Michigan ran the ball last year, and what were they? For Power 5 schools, I think per carry, like they were up there, the top 5. They might have been, when it came down to Power 5, top 2 or 3. They ran the ball a lot. We know that. We saw it. And getting into the second half of the Washington game, I was like, really? Is this team going to run the ball this much? The answer, yes. And that stayed with them. But when you think about Hassan Haskins graduating, and they do have good running backs with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards made a name for himself two ways. One, throwing the touchdown pass in the Big Ten championship game. The other was when he had 10 catches for 177 yards and 170 yards and a 77-yard touchdown against Indiana through the air. I mean, he's a running back that is a wide receiver, and that's the way. That's football now. And so, could Michigan turn this thing on its ear, where instead of being this predominantly running team, predominantly passing team? Answer to that, yes. It'll be much more of a balance for sure. I don't expect this team to come out and be running the football 80% of the time, like at times they were last year. But I think that's all good news. I think people feel like that. You understand that. And I think the other part here is with J.J. McCarthy and shoulder injury, throwing shoulder, consulted everyone in the world, Team McCarthy, Michigan, the doctors, and the good news was that he doesn't have to have surgery. When it is the quarterback on the team, when it is the next great one, it's going to worry you. And I think that's understandable. I think Harbaugh understands that. McCarthy understands that. You're worried about him. The good news again was that he that they're going to work it out and not have surgery. So he's still going to participate in spring, but he's not going to be throwing much. And so with that, you can't throw, you can't compete with Cade McNamara. And if you can't compete with Cade McNamara, you can't unseat him as the starter in the spring. So, it sounds weird to say this could possibly be good news, but with the transfer portal and McCarthy on McNamara's heels and these two guys competing, was there a scenario that one of these guys after spring ball, they went out there, they practiced every day, and one of them just, was outstanding, took the leg up and was, the clear cut better performer in spring? With the other guy, was there a chance they could have been like, I'm out? I mean, get to the portal. And I know McCarthy, said all the right things when Harbaugh about staying around, at Michigan, when Harbaugh was doing his thing with the Vikings and everything. But, there's still, that was with the idea like, hey, I'm going to win this job in the spring or the summer phase. Now he can't do that. Could it be potentially good news that, okay, he can't throw here in spring, so McNamara is going to be the guy. You get the other guys some work behind him, and then McCarthy comes along, and then whenever he's ready, that they're going to do the rotation like they did last year, some sort of rotation, and that's the way it looks right now. If we are guessing, if I am telling you my best guess for what's going to go on with the Michigan quarterback room and how it's going to play out this fall, it is different than what it was 2-3 weeks ago before I heard about this McCarthy injury. I thought that there was a pretty good chance that one of these guys was going to transfer. I thought that was the most likely scenario. I don't feel like that today. I feel like the likely scenario now is that these guys are going to split time. Now, however that looks, give McNamara the Colorado State game to start, give McCarthy the Hawaii game, start McNamara for the first quarter for the UConn game, give McCarthy the whole second quarter, and let the guy that plays the best get the second half. A lot of different ways you can do it, series to series. We saw last year Harbaugh, whether it was the first play of the second half or McCarthy, all kinds of different things just to get him, sprinkle him in, running situations, get McCarthy in there. But it's going to be different. I would think more McCarthy this year, and that rotation is going to be more of, is it going to be 50-50, 60-40? You have some games, if those coaches are sitting around like we are talking about it right now, I think what you say is that you've got some wiggle room. You would never say that publicly, like, oh, yeah, we got a super soft schedule. Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Maryland. We can go out. I can play quarterback, Harbaugh. Fithian can take a couple snaps. They never say anything like that, but they it's not like they're lining up against, I don't know, Alabama. That'd be too much. Not like they're playing a game that that people would pick them to lose in the first 3 or 4. So that's an advantage. And I know people don't like to hear, they want a definitive, this is how it's going to play out once September 3rd rolls around. And, it feels like you're hedging your bet or sitting on the fence when you say, well, McNamara, the best guess right now is that he would start against Colorado State, and then we would see some sort of rotation in there with McCarthy, a little bit heavier dose of McCarthy than what we saw last year. Although McCarthy did play against Western a lot in Northern Illinois, because what? Those games were in hand. So that's going to be the same kind of thing. How quickly that you get them in there? Are they really battling for the chance to see who takes the reins when they got to go on the road to Iowa and Indiana, for those first 2 road games? Yeah, I think that's all in play. And I'm not saying your guess is as good as mine, is as good as what the coaches are. I think they're talking about all of these things. I don't know. Do they have their game plan even roughly ready on how they're going to use these QBs. Well, it's changed. 2 weeks ago, they've known about the shoulder from McCarthy longer than I have and you have, but it's changed now. Things done changed when it comes down to the quarterback position, and I think that today is the 25th anniversary of Biggie Smalls passing away. So that's where the big things done changed came in. So, but they have done changed when it comes down to the quarterback position. All right, that's everything. Again, a reminder tomorrow that after the game will be on. If you're somebody that comments in or watches this show, I've been watching some other ones, some other shows like this around the network, and I was intrigued by Comp up at Spartan Mag. Jim Comparoni has been working for Rivals for decades, and Comp was doing a little show. And next thing you know, Comp was like, "Let's go to the phones," and Comp was bringing somebody in. We've got phone capability. We've got video capability. Go out there and you go to Twitter. You can direct message me. There's a little envelope up top where you can get right in there if you had any interest on getting in via phone or via video. We can do it. We can make it happen. And I would like to see that happen, especially once we get into the spring and summer. So this is the first mention of it. So let's see if we can get the ball rolling. I'll mention it for the next couple of weeks, if not months, and see how we get things rolling there. All right, Michigan football. The news is going to continue. We'll keep talking about it. We just scratched the surface on what Harbaugh had to say. Any more developments that come out, we'll be able to entertain those as well. And hopefully, starting tomorrow, I will be on for the 4 straight days after a Michigan basketball game, after the Indiana game tomorrow, after the Illinois game on Friday, after the who would it be then? Let me just, I guess I'll have to go back and look. Iowa? Let's see. Michigan goes here. They beat Illinois. Then it will be the Rutgers-Iowa winner. That's right. Michigan beats Indiana tomorrow. They beat Illinois on Friday. I'll say they beat Iowa on Saturday, and then we'll talk whiskey or Purdue. Who do you want? I want whiskey. So do you. So does America. Wants whiskey. We'll see if all that can play out. Talk with you tomorrow after the game. Thanks for watching this afternoon live here on the Maze